a stage, a window is nothing but a stage, just recapping. And on this stage, we can display scenes, often in other toolkits known as views. So the idea basically is that we can have stage is nothing but a window. So when I start my application, it will open a window for me. Then I can display a scene on that window. And in fact, we can have multiple scenes. So we can display one scene and then we can display another scene, fourth scene, whatever we want to see. So what is a scene? Scene is nothing but, as you can see here, it's basically, it will be displayed on the window, and it will have a scene graph. So there's a root node, which is normally a layout, the panel, the pen, and that layout will then contain, the root node will contain some leaf node, can be, say, a label or a text box or whatever, and we're going to create them shortly. But that can also have another group. So in turn, it will look like this. So that's the stage. We are displaying this particular scene. It has got a button, text boxes, so on and so forth. Okay, and that is just the display part. It is not active. So we are then going to go, and first we can simply create a simple window like this, just hello world. Doesn't do anything. It just says, you know, I open a window and I just tell you hello world. There's nothing there. We can put some more text on that, whatever we want to do. Later on, and I will change the subject because this is what you're supposed to do anyway. But what we'll do is involves a bit more than this anyway. So here you create two scenes. So that's your first scene. And you press the start button, it will display the second scene. Very easy to do, nothing complicated. I'll explain to you how it works. And in the second scene, you can click this button and the value here is changing. Go back to this, it will go to here. So that's basically the mechanism. So the question first of all is that, hey, I need to first come up with this display, which we are going to first do using so-called scene builder. And once we have this, we will save that as an XML file. And then we need to write the corresponding Java files. And this is what really gets interesting. And that's what we really are studying here. Is that once you have this view, well, how do I load it and display it? Of course, it doesn't do anything initially. Then how can I add connectivity so that I press a button and something happens? And so these are the things we're going to do today. Okay? So the first example is a rather simple example. So I'll start with, this is the exercise you have. Okay? And so the first example is the simple example here, the hello application, which we just talked about. Now what I'm going to do, now the way it works here is that every toolkit or the framework will have a particular way of opening the window, creating buttons, assigning different listeners, action listeners, event listeners. And the best way to go about it is that you just look at one example, second example, third example, and you can learn a great deal about how you can achieve many of these things. So as you may have heard it, you start with a boilerplate code. So there's a kind of code which says, okay, this is how you start up the application. And then it tells you, okay, you can add some more methods and change the behavior if you want. But the basic setup, you don't need to remember. You can start from the boilerplate code. Now, I mentioned this to you before. JavaFX is not going to be in the exam. We are not going to ask you questions on that. We are just going to learn because it's good to learn. Okay? So don't worry about if you don't remember exactly all the lines. Normally, we don't remember also. We normally look at the example, start from the current example, and modify. But conceptually, what is required is I'm going to mention, and this will be useful for JavaFX, for Angular, for React, whatever toolkit you use. The basic principles are the same across all of them. Slight changes here and there, and that's what we are learning today here, conceptually how the interface actually works. So first, I need to plan what kind of controls I want to display where, and accordingly I go and come up with a window which displays all my controls. In this case, it is just a window on the desktop, otherwise on the web page. Now, JavaFX gives us this builder, which allows us to create this display very easily. Okay. So on the CSC machine, and all the instructions will be available, they're already available part of your project anyway. 2511 on the CSC, I can say scene builder, okay, builder. Okay. So it just creates a window, and I can just say I just want to start with the empty thing. So that's what your window is. Now it says, well, okay, that's the window I'm going to create. Okay, and there are containers here, which are basically the layouts. There are many layouts already available there. Then there are controls, which are basically checkboxes, buttons, text box, so on and so forth, and many more things. Remember, we are only touching upon what we need for this course. But what you learned applies for many other things which we are not going to cover here. So first we say, well, okay, can I simply go and select what kind of layout or the container I want? So remember that the scene will have the root node is a container or the layout, which will then have other nodes in it. So basically, let's go and say, I think one of them. So I can drag and drop, or I can also go to insert and I say container and I say pan. Let's see what happens. If I do insert pan, it inserts that container here. Now, if you want to see here, this is the hierarchy. So that's a root node here, pan. Okay? And it says on the right-hand side, it allows me to change properties of whatever I've just selected right now. It's a pan, next time it will be controller and so on and so forth. Okay? So we are just going to, this is just the pan, and the color is background white, and I don't want to change anything. It's just the root container. In this, I'm going to put some more things. So the first one is very simple. So I say, the container is the layout, and there are many layouts: Hbox, VBox, pan, scroll, windows. There are so many of them. Now I go to controls. Controls are basically checkboxes, blah and blah. The simplest one is a label here, which simply displays a text. So it just puts it here somewhere. So I can click and drag somewhere here. I can put it here. Now in here, now that's the text it is displaying. So I can say here, okay, and if I click somewhere here, it just displays that. And of course I click it again here, so and I can go and change the font size here, okay, and I can change the color to whatever color I want. Okay, so that's basically my, sorry, I can just change it here. And it doesn't have to be, I can insert, come on quick, yeah. Then I say control, and I can put another label here. And again, I can just drop it here. I can also modify on the screen, but I say my first Java FX example, okay? So it doesn't refresh straight away, I have to click it here. And again, I just want to increase the font size. So you know what I'm talking about. So these are very simple, no interaction here. I'm simply click it here, and I just put it, come on. Okay, I just put it somewhere here, okay? So it has now created this window. Now we are just going to, first example, hello world, is we are just going to load and display, no interaction. Okay, and I'll show you the boilerplate code and how do we go about it. So I create that. Now I need to save that as an XML file. So I'm going to go and now I got a Java FX. Where is Java FX here? G. Yep. So that's an exercise here. I go here, source, example, and that is already there. So I've created some sample just to show you today. Now it doesn't matter, I'm not going to use any one of them. We are going to create a new one here, okay? So can I say I say sample we just created here, sample 3. Okay, we are going to do many more things. So I just want to get this first thing going here. And this is what I'm going to save it here, says save. So where I'm saving it now in Java exercise, there's a package called example.javafx. In that, I'm going to save that. And you will see it, sample 3. Okay. Do you really want to save without save with? Okay. Now, so if I go to Eclipse now, you see it doesn't show up sometime. You just need to say refresh. Okay, that's the 3 here. So that's the file. If I double click on that, that's what we just created. Now if you don't see the font size properly, let me know, I'll just increase that. Often because we need to display a lot of text, I can't really increase too big because we can't see much on the screen also. So there's a bit of a trade-off here. But anyway, so that's what you see here. It puts all the stuff. The idea is that that's the pen which we created. It's got all the children in that. There's a label we created with the hello world, and there's another label with my first Java F example. It tells me that the x-axis for that, y for that, and x for that, y for that, and that's all we have. We don't have anything else right now. Does it make sense? Yes? Now, if you want to look at the hello application example, now this is the boilerplate code which you can start with. So I will explain to you what this code is about. Okay, this is a very simple example which basically says that we are importing all the required classes from JavaFX. Okay, now the class application basically allows us to create a window or create a stage, and it will display that window as I mentioned yesterday on the screen. And that class will be implemented differently for different platforms. We don't need to worry about it. All those things applies. So what we say is that I want to simply extend that application class, meaning I want to use everything which is already implemented, but I just want to override or provide a few other methods. So basically when I extend that, I already inherit, and you can go and look at the API, it has got many methods which allow you to change the behavior of your application, of your window. So in this example, what we are saying is that my application is extending the application class which is already implemented in JavaFX. Now what we are doing here is that we are actually overriding the start method. Now the class application has already got a class method, and what it does is that the start method, is provided with a pointer in a simple language, or a reference more technically, to the stage or the window which is just open by Java. So basically start method gets this primary stage, or it gets a reference to, in a simple language, window. And now in the start we can do whatever we want to do with this window. In this application we are not doing anything much. We are saying, okay, I just want to open a border pane which is just a layout, the root node, and then I say I want to create a scene, and in this scene my root node is going to be border pane. So I say in my scene border pane is the object I create. There's nothing in the pane which is stored in the root variable, and I say I create a scene with that root variable. Now my scene is going to be 600 pixel by 400 pixel. That's the size of my window, but nothing in the window. Okay? And then I'm saying is that simply now this primary stage is given to us. So whenever the application starts deploying the window, it basically gets a reference from the window and gives me the pointer. So I say, okay, go to that and set scene, the current scene which I just created, which is nothing but just a pen with the reference, and then I simply show it. So all it does, so if I run this application here, okay, all it does, it simply creates the window and there's nothing there. Okay, so that's all it does. Okay, and how do you start it? So again, there's another called main method which basically says you launch, and that launch will launch this application. Now that's the boilerplate code. That's how we do in JavaFX. Now we are going to add more logic into the start and few other methods. The rest of it we don't want to care about. We want to hide that information. We don't really need to know what else happens. How the application opens a window and maintains, refreshes. We don't need to care about that. Now when I go to the second example, basically, and these examples will be given, is already there in that document. So I've just copied from there. Okay, so this will be available to you, and you're not supposed to know it. You start from these and add functionality on top of this. So the second application basically extends that exactly the same thing. Start is the same, obviously, the same signature. Now all I'm saying is go to that window or the stage and set the title to hello world. So I want to now set that title to hello world. So it will have a title hello world. Now remember the XML file we created. I want to load that. So how to load it? Well, that's the code you use. That's what I'm talking about, boilerplate code. So it's XML loader.load.getClass blind blah. So that's how it works. Now in this case, it is loading sample.fxml. Now remember, I want to have sample 3, which we just created. So I'm just going to put sample 3 here. That's all I need to do. Tomorrow you want to create another scene, just create it, save it in a whatever file, and all you're going to do is change the file name here, and it will, what happens, it loads that entire window, the scene, and basically now root is a object which contains the scene we just created with these 2 labels. And next we're going to add some more features on top of it. Ask me if you have any questions, okay? And then I'm saying I create this is actually not the scene, it is actually the root node, the tree basically. And now I'm saying create a new scene, okay? Remember that a stage is a window. I don't like these names they are using, but anyway, stage is a window, and normally scene is the view, and you can have different views you can display on the window. So anyway, in our example here, it's a stage, and I have created a scene. Now I say I want to create a scene, but what is in the scene? Well, it says whatever is in the root is in the scene, and what is in the root? What we define here. And again, we provide the size of that. And then I say, can you just show that? So everything is set up, can you show it to me? So if I now go and save that, and if I run it, you can see here, that's what we just created. Remember that thing? So that's the file I just created. Now, this file is nothing but that XML file. So if you really want to go back here, okay, and so let me run it again here, just want to show you. It is actually coming from the, so it's like this, okay? Now I'm just going to change x-axis, and this will change, so this is just, so whatever, that label is, and the x is this. Now let me change that to something like, say, 3. Okay, so if I run it, it will be somewhere different. Okay, so now it displays somewhere here. Okay, so literally you could have written that XML file if you just know everything, then you just write from scratch and you do it. It's fine. We can also create this everything programming also in Java also. Okay, there are many ways to do it. A lot of time people find it's easy to just get going like this. Okay, so so that's our first thing. But this is very simple example. Nothing else happens here. So it's just the way you display your window. There's no interaction. I click here, nothing happens here. Okay.